Now, as we saw with Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, it was only 272 words long, and yet it was a historic speech that had a huge impact on our country in terms of understanding what the Civil War was about. And sometimes something doesn't have to be long and involved in order to make a huge impact. Here's another example. The Communist Manifesto by Marx and Engels, which was published in 1848. Short book, but it influenced revolutions in places like Russia and China, and still, of course, has a huge impact on the world today because China is still a one-party state ruled by communists. Now, what we're going to do is take a look at the Communist Manifesto as published by Marx in 1848. Here's the way he believed the current capitalistic society in the middle of the 19th century was set up. You had a thesis. A middle class in power. And remember our definition of the middle class. Those who own the means of production. Now, that's a phrase that Marx will make very popular. And he believes that everything is about economics. It's, in a sense, a form of economic determinism. And what he would say is, look at any society, in any given time in history, whoever in that particular society owns the means of production, they will also have political clout. Now, what the Industrial Revolution had done is create a new class. And in Marx's dialectic, that's the antithesis. So an industrial society featured moving from rural to urban. People are going into cities and they're working in factories. These people don't have the right to vote. If they try to organize into labor unions, ownership is going to try to make that very difficult. Capitalists are going to argue, as we've seen, that each worker should be responsible for negotiating his or her contract with their employer. Freedom of contract. And so this class, Marx says, is creating and generating wealth, but they are not able to have any political clout, and they're not able to really enjoy the wealth that they're creating. And so Marx believes that what has been driving every society throughout history is class conflict. And in our time, Marx says, the time of capitalism, here's the class conflict. It's between these two, and it's inevitable. It will lead, Marx said, to, and this is a phrase that is used in the English translation of the Communist Manifesto, a revolution. He will use this phrase. A forcible overthrow is going to take place. And the clash between the thesis and the antithesis will create a new synthesis, a new reality. And it will feature this. The working class revolts, gains control of the means of production, And the result is the ideal society is created or constructed, and it is featuring rule by the ideal class, which of course is the working class. So Marx had a very labor view of creating wealth, and he believed that once this revolution took place, the ideal society would take over. That's the working class. And remember that what he believes here is going to happen is not just a prediction of what he thinks might happen. This is, Marx is going to argue, a historical inevitability. This is what human society has been created to achieve. And later on, he's going to write a book called Das Kapital, in which he does a lot more research. It's a more scholarly book. And he outlines the various stages of history. He goes through 3 stages, and then he says, we're now in the 4th stage, capitalism. In every stage, you can see the struggle between those who have and those who have not. And the conflict between those two then leads to a new stage. Now we're in the 4th stage of human history, where capitalism is in control, and it will be brought down. It will be destroyed, inevitably, via a revolution led by the working class, and then the ideal society, featuring rule by the ideal class, will come to fruition.